Hello Drawing 1 students, welcome to our second demo video. This past week we covered blind contour drawing, and you're all probably finishing up your assignments with that pretty shortly here. Today we're going to start with a new concept, and we're also going to carry forward the idea of contour drawing, except this time we're going to let you look down at your paper as much as you like and compare notes between your paper and the still life in front of you. Gesture drawing is the new introduction here, and I'll cover what I mean by that shortly. It's going to be the building block to all of our future drawings, especially the ones where, we really want to get the proportion, the angles, everything right in our drawing to help it feel fully dimensional and fully proportional. As you can see me writing out notes here, I'm detailing how I'm going to start this drawing. I've got number 1 as a gesture drawing, working it into something that resembles a really helpful proportional underdrawing. Following that, I'll take the gesture and I'll knock it back with an eraser, and then over top of that gesture drawing, we're going to use what we know about contour line to really be descriptive about the objects in front of us. Now let's check out what I've set up today for a still life. Again, I've got a lot of food. I'm using this stacking plate sort of holder on the left, 2 little mini bouquets that my wife put together, a pot full of apples, and a coffee cup with a stirring spoon. The first thing I'm doing here is I'm making a thumbnail sketch. For work as we go forward, I'm going to ask each of you, before you start a longer term drawing like this, to make a thumbnail sketch of what you'd like to accomplish in the final drawing. It's a great way that you can use a crop to get a more interesting composition to help your lines run off the page, and you can see me doing it here with my hands, trying to get exactly a rectangle. I'm showing you here, but I'm also going to look at my still life through my hands like that. Now, I also recommend that we make viewfinders at some point, and I'll probably make a video detailing how I'm going to do this. For today, though, we're not going to worry about it, and I'm going to leave the viewfinder by the wayside. I sketch out what I want my composition generally to look like in my little baby thumbnail box here. It's really rough, it has almost no detail whatsoever, and just gives me an indication of where the objects are. Let's look back at my still life to see exactly which section I chose. I decide that I'm going to focus in the middle bottom right half of the still life, since most of the density is there. It's important to choose an area of your still life that will encourage you to fill the edges of your paper, so that way you don't wind up with a small drawing right in the middle of a large white paper. It can feel like an island, it can feel really empty. We want those objects to run off the edge of the page. The first step in my drawing is to start with a gesture drawing. Now, a gesture drawing is an extraordinarily simplistic, quick, all-over kind of sketch that helps us just roughly get an idea of where things are, both on the page and in life in front of us. When I'm working in gesture, I'm thinking in the most basic of shapes. Here I am putting the apples inside that steel pot, but really the apples are just small little spheres or circles. The pot is just a cylinder. The handle that comes off of it is really basic in shape. The legs and armature of my plate stand are really just lines at this point. You can see me here adding the rough shape of the plates and the garlic on that bottom plate, really just making very crude, honestly the word is gestures. I'm feeling it out. It is not a particularly logical experience, it's just one where I'm looking quite a bit at the objects in front of me, and as quickly as I can and as crudely as I can, I'm moving them to my page. Now, it's important to note that I'm not using my contour drawing skills here. We've spent the last week talking about long, continuous, voluptuous lines, and here I am scratching away at my paper trying to get something that's the general shape of the objects in front of me. Now that's great. They're 2 different styles of drawing, and gesture drawing is a preparatory drawing, whereas contour drawing is a drawing that has a certain kind of finish to it. I look up frequently at my still life to double check that I'm placing objects in a proportional and correct way. On my paper, I notice certain things are not exactly right, But in the gesture stage, I'm not too worried about it. If something's wrong, I'm not going to grab my eraser. I'm just going to draw straight over it. You can see me here repositioning a little bit of the apples, marking some lines a little darker where I had gone astray before, or where I'm ready to affirm that yes, that's in fact where that object is. I move swiftly to another area of the drawing. I'm putting in those small puffball flowers, just in a general area of where they are. They're not perfect circles, and this doesn't capture them very well, but you can see me moving from the initial stage of a gesture drawing and working it up into a proportional underdrawing. This is the critical moment right after you've done a very brief gesture where you can kind of firm things up. For those of us who have trouble putting things in the right place or finding the exact shape of something, this is the section that really we're gonna both struggle on and that we're gonna practice quite a bit. As we firm things up, we'll realize some of this isn't right, and then we should reposition it to get it more perceptually accurate to reflect what's actually in front of us. All told, my gesture drawing took me about 1.5 minutes to place everything very roughly. Again, that's just with almost scribbles that are the vague shape of the objects. And then another 7 or 8 minutes to place things accurately where I believe they are. Now, they're not totally right yet, and some of that will come together in the next stage. And you can see me preparing for that here. In your kit, there are a few different types of eraser. The one that I have here is called a kneaded eraser, and it probably came in a small plastic packet in a square shape. The way these erasers work is you warm them up with your hands, pushing, pulling them, and separating them until they get nice and soft. You can then form the eraser any way you want, and here I make it sort of a cylinder, and I use it to roll away the excess graphite on my drawing. I quickly see that that's not lifting up particularly very much, and so I resort to scrubbing. Really whatever you need to do to take off the excess graphite pencil that is left over from your gesture sketch and your underdrawing. Because remember, the final product is going to use contour line in a very precise way, with dark darks on the deep crevices and light, really gentle strokes on the detail bits. Once I have my drawing sufficiently lifted out, I can start with contour. Just like the drawing of our hands from our homework assignment, or like the in-class objects we drew on Wednesday, I begin following the lines of the objects in my still life. I pay attention to my pencil pressure, and I follow the interior as well as exterior contours of each object. This allows me to give them a modeled, three-dimensional feeling while still using a linear stroke. Remember that we're looking for long, smooth strokes with our pencil, and that we're trying to avoid short, choppy scratching back and forth. It can be tempting when we see something incorrect on our paper as we're looking back and forth between our paper and the still life to try to correct it with short, scratchy lines. But remember, if you need the eraser, at this point, pull it out, erase what's incorrect, and go for it again using your long, smooth strokes. At this point in the video, we've covered contour drawing pretty well. So let's speed things up a little and we'll see how my drawing turns out. My only piece of advice as we go forward, or maybe a word of caution, is that if you ever get stuck or confused about what's going on your paper, that you refer back to the still life. Just like blind contour drawing, that's where all the information is, and sometimes the concepts in our brain of what these objects are can confuse our senses, when really the perception of our eyes is the most important thing. that about does it for this video. There are certainly places where I could refine my contour drawing, but with the use of gesture, I've placed everything in proportion and in the right spot.